It's extremely important that you specify the correct virtual IP address for the routers in your HSRP group. If you don't, then when the active router fails and the standby router takes over, the standby router, even though it becomes active, will not be able to forward traffic because the virtual IP address it is using is not the correct one for the group. How can we verify the virtual IP addresses being used on our routers? We can use the show standby command, show standby brief command. We can even look at the output of show run interface and in the interface that is part of the HSRP group. In this particular example, if we analyze DSW1, we type in show standby, we'll see here that the interface is currently down. And the virtual IP address is 10.1.1.62 in this particular case. Therefore, we expect DSW2 to be the forwarder for this particular virtual IP address. If we go over to DSW2 and type in show standby, we'll see in this output that the virtual IP address is incorrect. So since the virtual IP address is incorrect, it means the client, when trying to receive the MAC address of the virtual IP address that is configured as its default gateway, will not get the MAC address for this IP. It won't, because it's looking for the MAC of 10.1.1.62. So even though this is the active forwarder, there's no way for the client to even know that it has to send the traffic here. For example, let's take a look at PC1 right now. If we type in ipconfig, we'll see based on its IP addressing that it has an IP address of 10.1.1.10/26 and 10.1.1.62. So it's configured with the correct virtual IP address. The problem is that the standby router DSW2, which is taken over as the active router, well, it's configured with the wrong IP address. So PC1 says, hey, I need the MAC address of 10.1.1.62. Is there anybody out there to respond? Not anymore. No, DSW1 before would have been the one that would have told PC1 about the MAC address for this default gateway IP address. But now DSW2 is the active forwarder, so it's responsible for answering those ARP requests. But is that the IP address it's configured for? No, it's not. It's configured for 10.1.1.61. So it was a typo on our part in this case. And as a result, the client is never going to get the MAC address it needs to reach the default gateway. So we need to fix this problem. We have to make sure that this router has the correct virtual IP address configured. Interface VLAN 10, standby 10, IP 10.1.1.62. All right. So even though we had a mismatch in our IPs, we were still able to be in the same group. But let me show you something here. Let's bring back up DSW1. Terminal interface VLAN 10, no shut. We'll bring this back up, and it should become the active forwarder again because it has the higher priority and preemption is enabled. But let's go back over to DSW2, and let's give it a bad IP address again. And we'll show you the messages you receive. So this really shouldn't be a problem for you in the real world because as hello packets go back and forth between DSW1 and DSW2, they're going to notify you that the virtual IP address is not the same. The only reason why we weren't getting messages before is because the interface on VLAN 10, or pardon me, interface VLAN 10 on DSW1 was shut down. But now that it's up, we're going to get these messages here. And it's telling us we have a different IP address. And as a result, this really shouldn't be an issue in the real world because you're going to be notified via syslog messages. It's going to be really easy to troubleshoot this particular issue. You're going to look at your logs and say, oh, wow, look, we made a really big mistake with the IP addressing on both of these HSRP routers. But just to be aware of that, it can happen. It does exist. You can accidentally configure different virtual IPs, and it will cause a problem, especially when you have that transition happen from the forwarder to the standby. That's where you're really going to notice a problem because the clients will no longer be able to reach the networks that they need to reach.